Hello and welcome to St Michael's Hill. On this week's video I'm going to be reviewing the BBA wagon from Cavalex models. The wagon is available in two variants, the one you see in front of me, which is a weathered brown version, and also a rail freight black with red ends. Both of these available now for around £45 from various stockists and from Cavalex models, subject to availability. The BBA is a steel carrying wagon that has been earning service throughout the 80s, 90s and 2000s. The prototype is able to transport steel in various forms, from ingots and slabs through to coils and beams. The deck of the wagon was adjustable, with the uprights being able to be moved to carry each type of load securely. The wagons had a capacity of 75 tonnes per vehicle and were often seen on the steel flows in South Wales, the Midlands, the West Coast Main Line and up into Scotland. In this review I hope to cover how well Cavalex have managed to capture the feel and accuracy of the original prototype, and also talk about the quality of the model, any areas that I feel can be improved, and generally the overall appearance of the wagon. Cavalex have got the dimensions of this wagon spot on. The distance between the centre of the bogies and 176 scale should be 146mm, which, as you can see, is pretty much bang on. The total length of the wagon, excluding buffers, is 200mm, which is also correct for the prototype. As well as being very accurate, Cavalex have included all the detailed parts that you can see on the prototype. They've also really captured the spirit of the wagon and how they look. As I mentioned, these wagons come in two varieties. This brown version has been marketed as an undercoat for weathering. A lot of these wagons towards the end of their life ended up very kind of rust beaten, and all of the paint pretty much had been worn away. So this brown gives you a kind of nice starting point to add your own weathering effects to really bring them in line with how the prototype looks, certainly in the later life from the kind of mid-90s onwards. Whilst there isn't too much printed detailing on these wagons, any that there are, including the tops panels and overhead warning symbols, are applied very nicely. As is becoming standard with manufacturers of Cavalex's quality, the underframe has not been spared the detailing either. There is very detailed pipeworking and tanks that, as far as I can see from drawings and prototype images, also seem correct. When the model is also upside down like this, you can see very clearly the incredible mesh detailing on the deck of the wagon. This really is the highlight of the wagon for me, and Cavalex's greatest achievement in bringing a BBA that really looks and feels like the prototype. As you can see, the bogie detailing is incredible, and I believe for the first time this is a model manufacturer bringing bogies that have been built in the same way as the prototype rather than just a plastic moulding. If this is the case, then Cavalex should again be applauded for bringing a new standard to model wagons. The buffers supplied on this model are of a kind of square or oval shape. Some prototypes had the circular buffers, which I believe are included on the rail freight black version. One thing it would have been maybe nice to have is an alternate buffer shape for each of the wagons, but that's very much nitpicking, as both are available, and I'm sure there are aftermarket buffers available to fit if you really would like to have a wagon in this condition with the circular buffers. Each wagon comes with an extensive detailing pack which allows modelers to both customise their wagons and also to run them smoothly in other gauges like EM and P4. The parts you can see in front of me now are the uprights that can be replaced on the wagon to give different loads held. Also, there are spare brake calipers for EM and P4 wheel sets. When looking at prototype BBA wagons, you'll notice that the uprights that hold the loads in place are quite often damaged, bent, and Cavalex have allowed this to be modelled by supplying brass pieces for these parts. As you can see, the one in the middle has been easily bent and will hold its shape, which gives a very pleasing look. One thing that does seem a little bit strange is the instructions show these uprights on the outside need to be placed in, whereas in actual fact they're glued in place. It would have potentially been nice to have a wagon without these glued in, so they could be arranged in any way the modeller would like. The flip side of this, of course, is that many modelers want a wagon that they can run straight out of the box, and I can certainly see why Cavalex have included the uprights in place. Also included in the extensive detailing pack are air pipes, 3-link couplings and an NEM pocket blanking plate. As you can see, when fitted to the end of the wagon, they give a very nice finished appearance. Certainly for the last wagon in the rake, I would recommend fitting these, as having an NEM pocket on show is often a bit off-putting. The final thing in the detailing pack is the step that you can see just below the buffer on the left-hand side of the wagon. There's one of these for each end of the wagon as per the prototype. One very minor issue is that the hook of the tension lock coupling on both my wagons seems a little stiff and can make coupling a little bit difficult at times. But that's one of the only faults I can find on the wagon. Whilst at the moment my layout is under construction, I was able to test the wagons on some second radius curves and over some point work, and generally they perform very well. No derailments or no buffer locking even on second radius, which is always good to see. Of course, once the layout track work is complete, I'll be able to give these a far more rigorous test, but there's no reason I can see why these would struggle with anything that's going to be on my layout. In my opinion, the Cavalex model's BBA wagon is a massive success. The levels of detailing and accuracy are absolutely spot on, and more importantly, they've really captured the feel of the prototype in this model. For me, as I mentioned in the review, the brass mesh that makes up the main deck of the wagon is an absolute triumph. It takes what would have been a fairly plain wagon and elevates it to a truly stunning model. Cavalex should really be applauded for putting this much detail into their wagon, and they should be proud that it stands up alongside their PGA wagon that they released last year. There are some very minor details that I would personally change. The uprights being fitted as standard is one of them, and obviously the coupling, as I mentioned, is a little stiff. But that's really not going to be a problem for me, as I'm sure I'll end up using a different type of coupling altogether. These wagons are available now, and I would suggest moving quickly if you want to get hold of any, as they're already selling out at many of the retailers who stock them. The Cavalex BBA is a stunning wagon, and I've got no doubt that at the end of the year it will be in contention for all the awards for Model Wagon of the Year. To be fair, I would be very, very shocked if anything beats it, and I'd be very excited to see what that is. Cavalex have once again proved that they're one of the most exciting manufacturers in the model railway scene.